Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Ji ayanu, pakhair agale, ni hao, chunashumme, washmale. Ohio Gonzaimas. Guten Morgen. Hola, bonjour, privyet, kaifa hal? Hale shoma chatore, ahlan wa salam, marhaba, buna, mucho, gracias, swabiyab. Bhalli kare aaya, hosh gal din ayo sayo, khuya mora, chi bato, chi hal yud, kalimera. And a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning on a very fine day over here in Islamabad, where every time you make a turn or you're on the road, the only word which comes out of your mouth is Subhanallah. But with me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very lucky that I've been joined by my well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Hajar Sati. Hello Hajar, Assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much, Jazakallah khair, for introducing me. Since it's raining, and I think it's the second day continuously that we are witnessing the monsoon season, the monsoon rain. Weather has certainly turned out to be very fine after experiencing a very excruciating summer. But we hope and pray.
It wasn't really the excruciating summer though. You know, this time
Why
around, I don't
not?
think
Why
that
not?
it wasn't that hot.
Why
you know,
not?
Even if it was only for 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, and that was manageable for everybody. Yeah.
I don't
I think
think
that's
so. Oh
something
my
which
God.
I'm going to kind of refer to because that's what I experienced. But
Okay.
your experience can certainly be different.
Of course, because I don't like summers at all. I think we in the subcontinent don't like summers at all because they are so much excruciating. The sun is so much scorching, and that is why we always say that whenever there is rain, there's certain amount of romanticism which is attributed to the rain, to the monsoon. So you will often find, especially in our mass culture, in our pop culture, in our songs, there's so much romanticism involved. While in the
Barishein यूं
West,
अचानक हुई,
yes,
मुझे
Barishein,
लगा तुम आ गए,
and
you know,
yes,
something
the
of that
love
sort.
is attributed to the Barish and whatnot, right? While at the same time in the West, you will find in their literature, in their pop culture, there's a lot of romanticism associated with the sun because they don't get to experience that much of a sun, right? So sun is eulogized a lot, and you would find, and it has been in subject of countless fiction writing.
And Haja, even in the West, you know, whenever you're traveling and if it's a sunny day, you would see that, you know, that the streets are overpopulated. You know, people are out there, people are enjoying themselves. And that certainly shows how, you know, humane we are in our nature. So imagine, so whatever we get, you know, unfortunately, we might not be so thankful to Allah Almighty.
That's
And I
true,
think that's something which we certainly
true.
need to kind of focus on, that for whatever you have in your life, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that you have gratitude in the first place.
That's
And at the same time, parallel to that, you really need to have that faith and the power of faith that, you know, Allah Almighty has got your back, ladies and gentlemen. With that, let's get started with our day. So Haja, I have a question for you.
Okay,
You know, imagine, so I am that one gentleman who, when I, in my early years, started to study in a school,
Okay.
you know, I went to a girls' school, you know, because alhamdulillah, I've been blessed with 5 sisters. They were going to this F7 to...
I mean, you call it a mixed gathering, don't call it a girls'
No,
school.
it was, you know, it is labeled as a girls' college as well, you know, so that's where I
it's not
actually
a girls'
studied my
school
first
actually.
grade or
Okay.
second grade.
Okay.
And then that was the time when my sister realized that, hey, you know what, you know, so my sister was in conversation with my father that we certainly need to impart quality education to our brothers, you know, so thank you, Api Sadi, if you're out there, because you were that flag bearer of quality education in our family. And that was the time when I actually went to Berrier College.
Wonderful.
And Berrier College certainly changed the scope of how I used to understand things, how I used to comprehend, then sports, then discipline, then, you know, participating, and, you know, then these co-curricular, extracurricular activities. It actually shaped that person who I am today.
Wonderful.
And I certainly today, there's a reason why we are saying that, and we are very excited to talk about it, because, ladies and gentlemen, whenever we talk about the growth of a nation, it certainly comes back to the education of that particular nation. Do you agree to it or not?
That's very true. I 100% agree. But when it comes to the segregation of the education, I mean, I don't really believe in this concept, because whenever you go to the workplaces, you will find that there's no particular segregation there, right? So we have to work together. There's a mixed gender, right? But obviously, we are going to talk more about the inclusivity, about the diversity, and especially when it comes to the education and education at the lower level, in the primary school and then the secondary school, how it is important that we give voices to all of the students out there, especially the students who are a bit different, who learn differently, and we believe that every person is unique in its quality, right, in its characteristics, in his or her demeanor in the first place. So we would like to kickstart
But without any further ado, there's one thing which I would want to add, and that is that, ladies and gentlemen, while I was doing my research, I was putting in my homework. You know, I came across these lines said by a person who's over here inside the studios with us, you know, and this is why we are very excited and we're amazed. So, ladies and gentlemen, this lady actually makes sense with these sentences, and she says that investment in knowledge pays the best in trust. Number one, it is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. And as soon as I read it, it blew my mind. I was like, yeah, I think, you know,
Wonderful.
tomorrow's conversation is going to be wonderful. So let's see, who do we have inside the studios with us today?
And so without any further ado, I would like to introduce a very worthy guest who has so many feathers in her cap. She happens to be the member of the Standing Committee of the Public Accounts Committee, Information, Human Rights, Science and Technology, and she's also the convener of the Special Group of the Norway. We are very glad that we have been joined by Parliamentary Secretary of the Federal Education and Professional Training, who happens to be Ms. Saif Jaffar. Assalamu alaikum, madam, and thank you so much for coming
And
to
I
our show.
love the energy you guys have on the set. It's like, you know,
Jazakallah.
it's like a fresh morning start. So it's
Thank
wonderful, mashallah.
Thank
And
you
you know,
so
you
much.
mentioned your school, you know, I've learned so much. I was very lucky to go to a boarding school in
Mashallah.
Murray Hills,
Oh.
Convent of Jesus and Mary, the same school which Abda Hussain, Benazir Bhutto and all those went. And you know, whatever I've learnt, whatever the rules and regulations, the strictness we felt at that time, we would be grumbling about. But today, what values we have, I think it's all because of those nuns.
That's
You know,
true.
they have inculcated those things in us that
Alhamdulillah.
even if we don't fit into society, but we can't, you know, have change our rules and the way the things they have taught us, the values they have taught us.
Alhamdulillah. And
That's
we are
very
glad
true.
that, you know, that we are speaking about it, because eventually it's about the morals. It's about that
Yes.
holistic approach. Those teachers, those nuns, and everybody has
Exactly.
contributed to it. So let's start from a very macro level and then come down to the
Right.
micro level, because fortunately or unfortunately, you know, you've had a very short stint over here. You know, it's been only 1 year
That's
that
right.
you've been associated with the Education Ministry yourself. And, you know, so to talk about what we have achieved in this complete year, how would you want to put it, you know, for people out there, because we go out in 47 different countries?
Right. Well, there's so much, like, you know, we have tried to achieve over this short span of time. Okay, for like, you know the Prime Minister's vision, you know, even when he was the Chief Minister Punjab, you know, his focus was on education, and I was very lucky to be his advisor at that time. And as that, I remember we established Danish schools, you know, which
Yes.
are all over Pakistan,
Yes,
especially
wonderful
catering to
initiative.
the orphans and the underprivileged. And you have seen the success stories that Danish school has produced, you know. So Alhamdulillah, the focus was education in this tenure as well. And now we have been very lucky, the support of the Minister Ranat Tanveer, he was very supportive. So let me, like, there's so much, but I try to shorten and, you know, because we have limited time. Okay, we, like, you know, inclusivity, we started, I got the bill passed in the
Alhamdulillah.
National Assembly.
Congratulations
Alhamdulillah, thank you
on
so
that too
much.
as well.
Yes.
Allah subhanahu wa
Huge
ta'ala, I'm so
achievement.
grateful that he got this noble work done by me.
True.
And the other thing was that, you know, teacher training was the first program.
Wonderful.
You see, a proper teacher is the one who's the leading force. You know, how would she take and conduct the classroom, and how she will teach those values to the students. So teacher training was the first time introduced,
Right.
and we have trained about 1,000 teachers.
Right.
And the program is continuing, and we put in more money in that kitty. And then inclusive, after inclusive, you know, we started this app school, you know, that introducing app and technology in it, so
Wonderful.
that, you know, for the far-fetched areas where teachers and students didn't have schools.
Right.
So we went to that, and then we introduced another concept of school buses.
Yeah.
That was recently launched. That was a very good idea by the secretary as well, that you provide school buses. And
Right.
I wish you had seen one of those. I don't know if you have been able
And even
to see
previously,
it.
Prime Minister Mia Mohammed Shahbaz Sharif Sahab then actually gave away a few buses to the schools too,
That's
as well, where
right.
kids couldn't really make it to the
Exactly.
school.
I think
So
that's
he
the
made
best
sure that, you know,
solution
that
for Yes.
every child out there will actually exercise his or her right of getting educated.
Exactly. And then we went have the portal of e-Taaleem, you know, for the students, and you know, the missing facilities in school, you know, and then revising of the curriculum, and of course introducing constitution in the curriculum, you know.
Wonderful,
That was
yes.
very important, that the children should know the civic rights and the duties toward the
That's
country.
true. That's
So
true.
that is a new concept which has been introduced, and hopefully should be for the betterment. And then again, you know, my focus, if you ask me,
Right.
my focus was that as a child, what I perceived everything as a child, that what did I face?
Okay.
And I'm sure the child might be facing it today.
Right.
You know, I don't want to see those child with burdened bags and heavy books and, you
Oh,
know,
yes.
and dull faces and going to schools and hating that time
Right.
and waiting for the bell to ring and just leave the classroom.
That's
So I
true.
wanted to see really happy students, you
Yes,
know.
yes.
So, you know, in FTA schools, we have like about 400 plus schools. So in those schools, like, instead of burdening the child, we gave them 2 sets of books.
Okay.
Right.
So one set was for the home and one was for the school. So
Wonderful.
no heavy bags, not spoiling the posture of the child.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for saying that. But where were you when we were going to school? Are we
Well,
late
I
on
was
this?
in school at that time myself.
Alhamdulillah.
Not that old.
But it's so overwhelming to
Yes.
hear this, and there's a reason why I'm saying so. So imagine that, Alhamdulillah, my daughter is 10 years old now. So, and she always requests me that, Dad, if you get time, please make sure that you pick me up from school.
Right.
And every time I go to pick her up from school, and obviously it's my obligation as a father that, I'll tell her to relax and give me the bag. And every time I've, picked up that bag, it's
so
even
heavy.
heavier for me. And I'm like, Bete, how do you pick it up? She's like, it's normal for me.
Yeah,
I'm-
you can
I'm
do
like,
weight
I
"Okay."
training
think
on
we've
those
done the
bags.
same when we were growing up, right? Our bags were so heavy with
That's
the so heavy
right.
books. So that's wonderful that you are thinking about the future students and the kids who are studying right now. But madam, when you pass this bill, this is a remarkable feat to accomplish in the first place. I'm pretty sure there must be a lot of challenges. So education system in our country is focused towards very teacher-centric pedagogy, right? And teachers want the students to memorize a lot of lectures and stuff. But at the same time, what are the challenges that do you think that the teachers...
When this concept was first introduced,
Yes.
even in the ministry, it was quite alien.
Yes.
Nobody had an idea what dyslexia was.
Right.
And when I introduced, the first thought that came to people's mind was that it's some kind of disability. And then, madam, is nothing to relate with education, should go to special education.
True.
And that was very, very, challenging for me to make them understand what we are addressing,
True.
Right.
And then eventually, when the passing of the bill, it strengthened the whole cause.
Right.
And then I was very lucky to find a wonderful team of ideas, Ma'am Era Mumtaz, who was already working for so many years in
True.
Islamabad,
Mashallah.
and nobody actually, was addressing to it. So once you make it a law, I think the schools adapt through PIRA and FDA schools and all that. So basically, first what we had to do was make it legal, then to train the teachers,
Yep.
and we made it into modules, and now the teacher training is done, and inclusivity, and they're being trained on, and also dyslexia. Now what the teachers will do is get trained for about 6 months to become remedial therapists. Ma'am Iram is also having training students for remedial therapy. And after that, basically what is dyslexia? It's the difficulty in reading,
To learn.
Right.
and it's difficulty in your writing skills. You have spelling errors. You don't differentiate B's and D's and P's, or
Yes,
in numbers 6 and 9.
Yeah.
So it's that. But what happens is when you repeat it, the
Right.
child remembers it,
Okay.
So it is not that it's in heredity. You cannot say that child, had it on his own. Either it's in heredity, or when the child is being born, the oxygen level doesn't go to the brain.
Okay.
But I must say, Einstein was dyslexic.
Yes, yes.
Three presidents
Yeah.
of United States
Yes.
were
Yes.
dyslexic. Tom Cruise,
Few
leading
of the Hollywood
heroes.
stars are
Yeah,
too.
they are
And people
Hollywood
over here,
stars.
so it's better
And
people-
again,
yeah.
sorry, I'm cutting you. About 20% people in each classroom are dyslexic. So when I introduced it, I had hands raising up. Ma'am, I think what you're saying is that I must have faced that in my childhood. So that people started relating to that,
Yeah.
That's true.
So it is like something so common.
That's
But because of those difficulties and minor errors, the child's personality is drawn. The child feels that he's a failure, he cannot achieve anything in life.
Right.
When during these days I met this person, he came to my office, he had some work of different nature, and he said that, ma'am, I'm so grateful that you got this done, because I left I was doing metric and I just couldn't do it. So I did it privately. And that throughout my academic years, I tried to do private courses, but today I'm a chartered accountant because I didn't give up. So how many of us who are, students are there who are not ready to give up, and the parents are not blaming the child, because
Right.
now it's a rat race.
That's
Everybody wants those 90 numbers, 90% marks,
That's
but
true.
they don't understand that the child, how is he growing as an individual? Is he as a strong person? Is he happy?
True.
Or is his character being formed, or he's just learning this rote learning and you want to show it off?
And since you've
Right.
spoken about it now, I think, I might have, faced similar challenges because I only scored 9 marks, I think, out of 100 in my mathematics exam.
think we need to
and I
consult
couldn't
your
understand.
teacher.
And, so the entire solution, which I used to write over there,
Right.
didn't know anything about it, so I would only memorize the answers. So I was like, okay, Allah, me
Oh,
please
wow,
pass
now
kar
you
dena.
have such a good memory that you can memorize
Yeah,
the
yeah,
answers
yeah.
only.
So I
That's
could
sort of-
memorize the answers only, and then my teachers would ask me, yaar, Okay, your answer is right, but how did you do it? I was like, sir,
I have a parrot-like memory, right? Yeah.
At least got some marks on that. But
Right.
congratulations on that,
Thank
because
you
we have
so
always
much.
been speaking about inclusivity and how
true.
children,
And
every child out there has a right to kind of
Yes,
get
of course.
themselves educated.
And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't made each one of us the same.
That's
You know,
true.
we are gifted in a different manner.
That's true.
But it
That's
doesn't mean that you stop somebody
And
from
when
that.
we talk about especially dyslexia, and I was reading the bill that talks about the associated disorders like dysphagia, dyscalculia. Thank you so much for incorporating all of these associated disorders into it. And because it's a very stealthy sort of a disorder, you cannot easily identify the
Right.
symptoms of it, right? But when, madam, when we talk about the integration into the society, right? So there's a whole conversation. So should we have separate schools for such sort of case?
No,
or
no,
should we
not
have-
at all. Please,
Right.
let's not. I don't want to
Yeah.
even talk about this
Exactly.
concept
Right.
because basically these students are in each class, so they
Right,
are going to
right.
be part of the school education
That's true.
system. Like we said, I might have it at
Right.
certain time, and I might not even know it.
That's
You know,
true.
and you might have had it. So
That's
basically, it's the awareness which is coming now.
Right.
So what the schools have to adopt,
Right.
what we are trying to
The teacher training
the
is-
teacher
yeah.
training, and of course when you bring in the student, when you enroll it in your schools, so basically that's the time you have to evaluate him accordingly, that does he show the symptoms of dyslexia or no.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
and as he is growing,
Right.
and that one thing, and then the teacher training, and of course the relaxation in marking and examination paper.
wonderful.
Now federal board is doing that.
Wonderful.
So we have passed that, and now the federal board is being very relaxed and is making special rules
Right.
for dyslexic children.
Exactly.
Right.
So you know, everybody should be encouraged. Now private schools are like, you know, first we had this project which Team Idea was you know,
Yes.
taken care of, and they were like, you know, that was a success story. So
Right.
now we are going to spread it all over Islamabad, and of course and then later on to the provinces. But it's the first step, but it's
Right.
not the end now.
And,
Let's
and
see.
in addition to that, so obviously it happens to be a great news for every parent out there, you know, who are actually looking for more avenues for their children to get that quality education which everybody
Yes.
wanted. And in addition to that, I think what we certainly need to kind of, it's a question which I'm going to raise in front of you, that, you know, on these terms, we certainly need a public-private partnership, you know, for the private
Yes.
schools to kind of, you know, step ahead. Or public institutions, you made sure that they're going to follow this because the bill has been accepted, it's been passed.
You know, I really need that support from the private schools, because you
Yes.
see, usually what was happening earlier, I met like some mothers during parent-teacher meeting, and their children were dyslexic,
Okay.
and they were so overwhelmed. And what was happening was, by the time the child reaches OA level, the school will excuse the parents that, you know, your child cannot sit, so please take him. So when the ownership went, now because of the bill, they have to, you know, make the child sit for the thing. And on top, it's an international relief, you know, O levels. I remember I
true.
met this girl, her name was Sarah, and she was dyslexic, and she was like, again, you know, a very, very motivated child, and she stood first for Pakistan in OA
Wonderful.
levels, and
Wonderful.
she was dyslexic. So you know, it is these success stories teach us
Yes.
that, you know, the children are very sharp, but you just need to give them that comfort zone so they learn and prosper.
Right.
Exactly, and in addition to that, stop labeling them as well, you know, because you never know
Exactly.
who's going to
Labeling is
achieve better than
disabled.
us, you know. So
Yes.
any single day there'll
Exactly.
be people from
By
different
the
walks
way,
of life.
yeah, and by the way, these children are more worldly wise, you know.
Yes.
They are very sharp than an
Yeah.
average
They
child.
have a different sort
And
of
they
a
behave
Yeah.
more as well, you know.
Yes.
This is
Yeah.
something which I've seen, that, you know, that everywhere, God
Very
forbid, you know, this
creative,
is something
yes.
that
Very
they go through.
creative, yes.
Yeah, they're very creative, you know, they're the
Right.
most well-behaved children
That's right.
Right.
in that classroom or probably wherever you meet
True.
them.
That's
But
right.
in addition to that, ma'am, now what I want to move on to is that the world's evolving. You know, we
Yes.
speak about technology, you know, you've actually spoken about, you know, how there have been electronic initiatives in terms of education. Now for us to kind of, when we go back to our textbook, you know, that's something that we have certainly been worried about. You know, I studied the same, you studied the same,
Right.
and I think children these days might probably be studying the same with a few minor changes after the SNC. How do you think that we really need to have a broader vision in making sure that we are on the same page as the rest of the world? I'm not going to say West only, because that does not identify that, you know, invest the education quality somewhere here. You know, world over, how do you think that we need to collaborate, that we need to involve, and then at the same time adopt to newer practices?
I think we like, you see, like you follow West and the Europe, like for every other thing,
Yes.
you might as well learn some good
Sure.
things from there as well.
Sure.
And not of Muslim history
Community.
has been very rich. You
That's
know,
true.
the
That's
biggest scientists have been Muslims. You
That's
know,
Yeah.
true.
so let's not forget that, and let's have the ownership for that.
Algebra, chemistry,
Exactly,
everywhere.
Jabbar
exactly.
Burhan, yes,
So
yes.
Alhamdulillah. So what I think is that we should learn from them, and now there should be a proper method. You know, we should not have the same ideology of teaching and same temperament in classrooms and same, you know, like you said, rote learning. So the concept has to change. The teachers have to think that, because they are the leaders now.
Right.
You know, they are the ones who are forming the nation.
Exactly.
So they have to adopt new ideas, you know, how they take it. So that's where the teacher training came in.
Right.
And now I just wanted to say before I miss it, because
Sure.
it's a big achievement.
Sure, sure.
Like, see, federal board was not looked up to. Everybody in private sector, people who are well-to-do, would go for OA levels.
That's true.
But now your degrees will be marked by Cambridge. So you know, your degree will be evaluated by the, internationally, and will be given the accreditation. So I think it's a wonderful achievement that if you are matriculated, if you have done it locally, but you will be well recognized
So
internationally.
it's the same now.
So it's
You know,
going to be
whether
the
you
same.
do O levels, A levels, because you know, I still remember, because my elder sister, you know, who's a doctor, alhamdulillah, wanted to get admission in a medical school. So what happened was that, you know, my father told her that, okay, beta, you know, if you're going to go into metric and FSC, that'll be way easier, because otherwise we'll have to convert your grades, and that's what we did.
That's right.
So now it means that, you know, even if you have to study internationally or locally, you know, whether
Your
you do,
degrees are,
so
yes,
whether you do
well
metric or
recognized.
FSC, or whether you do O levels and A levels, it's
Yes.
actually going to be the
And
same.
I
So I
think-
think it's best, because for
Yes.
me, when my father gave me this opportunity, कि बेटा OA levels करना है या metric, तो मैंने कहा मैं metric भी ठीक हूँ. I don't know how to go
You know,
to
when
FSC.
I became the member of parliament, I just wanted to say
Sure,
something.
sure.
I did my senior Cambridge.
Mashallah.
And I remember when I went to higher education for my, you know,
Conversion.
conversion, I didn't get it. And I was like, you know, I was at a fix that, you know, what will I do? Then I had to write to my school and then to the Cambridge University.
Yeah.
And then I got it done.
Okay.
So
And
now,
then they deduct 20% as well out of it,
yeah,
right?
exactly. And then I realized, no, this has to be fixed. Now you can do it online through
Okay,
HEC.
that's a
So,
wonderful
you know, I think whatever you learn through your struggle,
Yes.
you make sure that nobody else
Nobody
suffers.
else.
That's true.
And
That's
that's a very
true.
productive thinking, and we are very glad that we have some sort of people who are thinking about it on these lines in the first place. But ma'am, when you talk about dyslexia, so you need to give those students who are dyslexic an emotional safe space, right? And Bill clearly mentions about the handbook, which shall be made ready by the teachers or the civil society or a collaboration of different
Yes,
group
we
of people.
are going to go for
Yes.
a dyslexic launch. I wish
Right.
Iram was here with me, because she has done a remarkable work. And now, because through National Book Foundation, we have
Right.
made booklets and all for
Okay.
the and till the grade 8.
Okay,
So we'll
wonderful.
be giving it to the staff, and inshallah they will help the teachers, you know, to
Right.
conduct the classroom well.
Right, right. And that's a very wonderful initiative in the first place, because I believe that every child should be given enough opportunity in order to succeed in this course, right? And especially when they are differently abled, when they have different sort of an ability, and they're very talented and gifted in the first place,
That's
right?
right.
And when you talk about the integration into the society in the first place, and you mentioned a lot of success stories, but do you think that we need to talk more about such sort of an issue in order to make, so there should be representation of them and should not be exceptions in the first place, right?
See, if you meet a normal person, you will not know if he's dyslexic or not.
Yes.
You know,
yes,
it is
that's
only
true.
when he'll be writing something for you or reading something out loud, you'll have a bit of an idea that he's
That's true.
dyslexic. But other than that, they're very sharp, normal people.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but now I think we need to talk about it more for
Right.
the people to understand it and accept it. You know,
And that's where change starts, and that's the cycle. And you know, so I always share with our audiences that, you know, it's our responsibility to talk about it,
that's
notify
right.
it,
And you
then
guys
for
are
the
doing a
people.
wonderful job,
Thank
like,
you
you
so
know,
much.
talking about it today. So all your listeners and viewers will be watching
Alhamdulillah.
and learning so much.
Thank you
today.
so much. And Alhamdulillah, we happen to be one of the most watched morning shows over here in the country and outside the country
Mashallah.
as well. Alhamdulillah, we've been very lucky. Shukr,
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. But one more thing,
Alhamdulillah.
and that is that I've always mentioned, you know, whenever we speak about our higher education, what happens is that, you know,
Yes.
that the academia and then the job market lacks a bridge in
Yes.
between. And then, you know, so don't you think that, you know, if we come up with a comprehensive process where, you know, universities can tell us, okay, that's what we want from students from metric and FSC, and, you know, they can perform better in universities. And then the universities, you know, get in touch with the job market and say, hey, okay, you know, these are the courses that we really need to administer, so that we have a process, you know, where we produce
I
children.
totally agree with you, and that's what we were trying to do, achieve at this time. Like, you must have heard that we recently launched a dormant fund, which the Honorable
Yes.
Prime Minister did about for 15 billion initially. So basically, what is that? That piece, I wanted to go for a Talim card. That was another initiative I was working on, but now we are short on time. So inshallah, we will do it, inshallah, and then continue.
You never short a time, just keep at it, okay?
So basic concept was that what I realized when sitting in my office, that people were dropping out because they didn't have the fee to structure to pay. And if a parent was holding for having family of 5 members,
Right.
he would not educate the daughter, might focus on the son
True.
because of for the
Right.
future
True.
of. But then after when you after this endowment fund, so you know children will not be dropouts. Number one. Of course, I believe there's an international market and there's a vacuum. If you look at local social media, Norway, Sweden, you know, and so many other countries, even Great Britain, they're asking for people to come in.
True.
But we need to bring linkages. I think our missions abroad, they need to tell us and survey the market and tell the education system, the HSC, that okay, this we have this facility, let's do the bring. The linkages are not there, and that is the loophole in every ministry.
And I'm really happy that you pinpointed it yourself. It feels wonderful that
no, because I feel it, because that's
True.
very close to my heart, that I next time in government we have to build these linkages, and you know, so once the child knows that I do my degree, my job is waiting for me. Not that I hate it. What I hate, then I see people, young boys standing outside corridors in big lines just for a one job application. It burns my heart, it kills me. So you know, every child has a right. They are the citizens of Pakistan. They have the right, even they don't have to come to me or you, ki hamari go for a safarish and then I'll get the job. I don't want this safarish culture.
Exactly.
They come in merit, whoever's son he is. And that's what the Honorable Prime Minister is also doing, you know. When we were giving out those awards and those certifications, he would ask quietly to those child that what does your father do? And you know, and what are you studying? So the child will tell them, and he felt so good, you know, somebody's laborer's child or some poor man's child. So that was such an achievement that you're giving him a promising future.
And I'm really happy about it because just a day ago, you know, I was at the Prime Minister's office, Alhamdulillah, you know, where the Prime Minister's Youth Initiative on sports, giving away 5 billion rupees, you know, for the first sports university, the endowment fund and whatnot. And, you know, to have this focus on the youngsters, that's something which primarily I appreciate about our Prime Minister, Mia Mohammed Shahbaz Sharif Sahab. Very quickly, because we have a larger chunk of youngsters, what would you say to youngsters in Urdu and in English? You know, so that's your camera. Please just talk to them.
Well, I would wish every child, you know, for success and never give up. And I think the world awaits for you, you know. So just strive, work hard, be committed, and Allah Ta'ala Subhanahu Ta'ala will open doors for you.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, madam, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you and for everybody who's out there. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, when you have the right people at the right job, that's the time when your country is steered in the right direction. And that's exactly what we want. And at the same time, where I mentioned that we certainly need to believe in public-private partnerships, where it's about education. It burns our heart as well that, you know, that if somebody comes in that they cannot finance their child, please make sure that it's a shared responsibility and Allah will give you the ajr. So meanwhile, while our leadership, alhamdulillah, which we trust on or trust in, is fixing everything, please make sure that we contribute to that essence and we contribute to that effort and let those flowers blossom. We are actually heading on towards a short break. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. Good morning. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you very much for staying tuned. Aja wanted to say something. Okay, Aja, your turn.
Okay, so we talked about the inclusivity, diversity, right? And that is making sure that we look out to all of the people, individuals out there in the society. And when we talk about looking out people, humanity in general, so it should not be limited to an education, right? And wholesome concept also includes protecting individuals from the harm, and especially when we talk about the digital era, in the digital age, right? Harassment and trolling and whatnot, which is so much common nowadays because everyone has this opportunity and everyone has this very lazy sort of an opportunity to write anything they want on the social media, right? And how does it characterize into cyberbullying in the first place?
Or
and how
cyber defamation.
Yes, and I do feel, especially in the social media, that there's a lot of gender divide, right? So when we talk about, and there was this conversation about a lot of women journalists internationally and nationally too, that they face a lot of trolling and they face a lot of cyberbullying in the first place, a lot of character assassination in the first place, and which is really harmful, right? So for example, if person is sitting next to you, that person might be careful about how he word his entire sentence, but when that person is on the social media, I think that filter is gone, and there's this lot of this
Hajar,
trolling.
thank you so much for saying that, because you know, you've hit the nail on the head.
Yes.
And at times is something which I actually kind of talk about with my friends too.
Right.
That imagine, for example, if you're texting somebody,
Yes.
you know, that does not completely share the kind of emotion, the thought process you were in, or the kind of, you know, mental ability you have to convince somebody, even if you're convincing somebody over your phone. You know, so it's always incomplete. You never get the complete picture, and anybody could actually get a notion that unfortunately you might, because you never know what sort of a mood they are in. You know, so you might not understand it that way, and it has happened on multiple occasions that somebody has texted me about work, and I was in a very different mind frame, or if I was working somewhere else, I was like, yaar, ye baat isne kya kar di hai, you know, or it does not, you know, feel very pleasing to my ears. So ladies and gentlemen, I think everybody out there, and it needs to be a part of our moral and character, that we make sense with our words, and that nobody is offended by it. You know, I'm certainly not saying that we have to be really pleasing about it, but we need to make sure that nobody is offended by it. And God forbid, you know, if there wasn't no intent of unfortunately offending somebody, and somebody actually felt offended, that's something which can actually get you in trouble. So to kind of talk about it, what is cyber defamation, cyber bullying, where do we go, how do we differentiate, discriminate in between? So I think for that, we're really happy once again that we have another wonderful guest. So who do we have with
So
us?
I have the honors to introduce her, because she has so many feathers to her cap. Like a previous guest, she happens to be a Fulbright scholar, a Humphrey Fellow and a Peace Fellow, and she happens to be Miss Shabnam Nawaz, who is also a lawyer of the Supreme Court. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much, madam, for coming to our show.
Assalamu alaikum, Shehzad or Hajra, for having me on your show. Thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us, madam. There's a reason why I'm saying so, because it's very rare that we get to see you know, people who actually, or lawyers who are practicing at the Supreme Court, you know, and there's a very lesser number of women specifically, even though now we have women judges too as well, alhamdulillah, in the Supreme Court, making sure that they're going to contribute from the other end. And now I think what we primarily need to focus on is that it needs to be a crash course for our audiences, you know. So what is cyberbullying, you know, what is cyber defamation, how do we differentiate in between? So let's start from the basics, and then we'll take it from there.
Shehzad, this world is sadly a very dangerous place for women, and it has been accepted internationally, not just nationally, okay? And it's a very sad state of affairs when we see that. Now, what do we want to know here is about, first of all, we should know what defamation is. So I believe defamation, to me, I would say, is bringing injury or harm to a reputation of a person. And you do something that lowers the person's esteem to in the eyes of his peers, his friends, society in general, or you subject him, or you kind of expose him to ridicule, hatred, or you know, any sort of demeaning, you know, attitude from the society, which lowers the esteem of that person for good.
So when you give a demeanor, unfortunately, to somebody, you know, that's something which actually encompasses the entire definition. But these days, you know, our mental health is so vulnerable that even if somebody intends to do it or not, you know, it is totally, once again, based on our understanding of what the other person is saying. And then a lot of times people are mistaken even at workplaces, even at, you know, within your friends. So how do you, what does law define that, okay, this is it, there's no gray area, this is black and this is white?
So if we are talking about, you know, defamation, so I would be focusing only on cyber defamation at this very moment, okay? So Section 20 of Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act 2016 is very much clear. It explains how a dignity of the person, of the natural person, is violated. What are the, there are several clauses that explain like if you do this without the consent of the person, like for example, we have number of cases of married women who have been, you know, for the excuse me, for the first time they have been blackmailed into, you know, doing the act with the perpetrator, and then he makes a video of them, he makes a nude picture of her, and then this vicious cycle, you know, continues for years, and she is blackmailed into giving the perpetrator the amount he asks for, or else he would be making it viral. Making it viral. So I want to actually talk to the girls of the universities or colleges, I want to really let them know there are two things. One is, don't be scared if something of the sort has happened with or without your consent or free will. If it has happened, do go to the authorities, and what is the authority that you need to approach? That is FIA. That is your agency. And I mean, they have such good female inspectors and sub inspectors. They're really good looking women, and you really want to go and sit with them, and you don't feel any intimidation or any kind of fear, just like you go to Thana and you are scared. I mean, people,
and they're high on technology too.
Oh yeah, they're highly educated as well.
True.
Right.
So right away, when you file a complaint, now this is when I'm telling you, when you have the courage to file a complaint. Now there is another scenario when you don't have the courage, something has happened to you, you don't want your parents to know, you don't want the society to know that it was you that went through all this, you're a victim of that. So it can be done through the officer of the agency.
And you can stay anonymous.
You can make a call, or send an email, right? And then through that, the agency would set the criminal justice system in motion. They right away go, they recover the mobile or the device which was used to make those videos without your consent viral.
They're going to confiscate it.
Yeah, confiscate it, send for FSL, or and after that, they actually send it to the Facebook authorities, and then there is that analysis of the whole of the account, and it is seized, memo is made.
And in addition to that, because I've experienced this myself.
As well.
Yeah, because I've experienced it myself, and there was this one lady whose case I was kind of making sure that I reach out to FIA for her to in order to help her. So they not just confiscated, they got the boy. The boy was studying in IB at that point of time, and he was a master's student. Anybody could have those evil thoughts, so let's not get into that. Not just that, so what FIA or the people of the FIA, what they told me was that, sir, we are 100% efficient and we can do it. But what happens is that when we file a case, the women or the men withdraw the case. So why do you think that we would do all the hard work and then people would take away the cases? I mean, it's obviously their choice. But how would you categorize it? Don't you think that it's hard work wasted? Because FIA is on top of their game. I've seen it myself.
Yeah, they are. But I think, Shehzad, as far as my knowledge is concerned, even if the person says he or she wants to, compromise the case, there are cases which are not compoundable. So compoundable means which cannot be compromised upon.
So is it the nature of the case, or do you think that every case is compoundable?
No. Not all the cases are compoundable. In PICA, which Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act, there are cyber terrorism which is not compoundable, violating the integrity of the natural person, child pornography, and when you violate the dignity of the minor by superimposing the minor's photograph on an explicit image, and then you make it viral. So things like that, they are not compoundable. So no matter how much pressure the society or the parents put on the child or the girl who has been victim of this, they cannot compromise in the instant case, because the state would prosecute.
And the anonymity stays.
Anonymity stays.
And that's a wonderful initiative, because I think we need such sort of anonymity, especially in our society, because it's generally a conservative society, and it's very difficult going out, expressing your voice and telling that you are the victim of such sort of acts. But when, ma'am, we talk about cyber harassment and cyber bullying, and that is broadly regulated under the PICA Act 2016, right? But we've also seen that there are a lot of fraudulent practices which are going on, Shehzad, on the social media, especially the websites which are selling a lot of things. And I would say that I have been conned by a couple of them, and I think a lot of people have to share such sort of experiences. So do we have protection against such sort of fraudulent practices on the websites? And if we have, what is the sort of solution for us if we want to file a complaint?
It's the same as in this, because those practices are also prosecuted under the same PICA Act, right? There are different sections of law which provide for the punishment, the procedure, but you have to go to FIA. Now that is very much clear to you, right? So for defamation, there are two things. There is a Defamation Act. Either you go directly to the district court and file a damages suit under Defamations Act. And then there is cyber defamation,
Right.
Either you file a complaint when the section of law is not cognizable.
True.
I hope you know what cognizable is, when the police can arrest not
And you have to be
cognizable.
physically
not
present there, or you can file it in the email as well.
Yeah, you can file it in the email as well. You
Okay,
can tell
wonderful.
the police officer that I cannot, I don't
Right.
want to disclose my name, but this is the video which has been made viral of me or
Wonderful.
my child or somebody else.
Right.
So did you hear the term police ki mudayyat mein ye likha
जी
gaya?
जी जी
Right,
बिल्कुल
So
right.
when it is the police officer
Right.
who becomes the complainant in that,
मुद्दई, yes.
Right.
and you see, what is the first information report? It's
Right.
just itla. It is just the
Information.
information given that gives power to a police officer or an
Right.
agency to move forward and proceed ahead with the criminal case.
Exactly. And in addition to that, so obviously it's a subject which I certainly do not want to take in a very lighter tone or a lighter note. But
No,
there's
no,
one
it
more
has-
thing which I would want to talk about over here, because imagine in Pakistan we have a youth bulge.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who are going to be in love. There are a lot of people,
Yeah.
who would want to plan a family, want to move ahead.
Yeah.
Right.
And they certainly have no idea whether the other person will have a very positive response or a negative response. And in that charm of that personality, or in love of that personality, what
Yeah.
they do is that they keep on texting, they keep on slipping into their direct messages.
Succumbing to
yeah.
their whims and wishes.
Yeah,
Send
and
me
then
your
at
this
times
picture.
it can go against them. That's what I would want to ask you. Can it actually go against them, for them to
Shahzad-
kind of
Shahzad,
continuously
let
text
me-
somebody?
let me be very clear in this for the audience, because there are so many misunderstandings and misconceptions. Anything, even a husband and wife, let me go to that extent. Even a husband and wife are somewhere, on the beach and enjoying, and they make a video of themselves and, their intimate moments. The husband is not allowed to make it viral, even after divorce.
Obviously.
You understand? I mean, the moment the law does not care whether it was with consent or without consent.
So why
all
make a
right?
video in the first place? I mean, that's something which I
They
would want to
do.
kind of convince
They
people
do.
on.
I don't know. People have some kind of, fantasy. I don't
Yeah.
know, some kind of.
Exactly. Different brains,
this is
different
another-
thought processes.
This is another,
Yeah.
I think, mental issue
Yeah.
which needs to be addressed. Why would you make a video of such
Yourself,
a thing?
yes.
Yeah. What charm do you get out of it? But they do. And then
Right.
when they make it viral,
And they blackmail as well. right?
blackmail as well, but Qazi Faiz Isa Saab and our Chief Justice Saab Ibrahim Khan Saab, in such like cases, they don't grant bails. They are very, very strict in implementing this speaker law in order to, you understand, deter people from indulging in such kind of practices, which is this thing is
For such a case to reach
it's-
Supreme Court takes time. No?
no, because bails reach Supreme Court like within maybe 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
If your bail is rejected from the Sessions Court, you go to High Court
Yeah.
and then you go to Supreme
Supreme
Court.
Court.
But the Supreme Court is also there. I mean, there are so many beautiful judgments by the judges of the Supreme Court and our Peshawar High Court judges. I mean, they totally, people would come with the argument that just see this girl in these pictures, just see she's smiling, which means she was a consenting party.
And that's a very patriarchal interpretation in the
Yeah,
first place,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
we need to talk against it. And I'm very glad that you mentioned that our Supreme Court judges are very strict
Yeah,
about it in the first
yeah,
place.
yeah,
But
they
then
are.
when we talk about the hate speech, and we would often find silly comments on the social media.
Yeah.
Some are ill wishes, some are threats, some are
Yeah,
whatnot, right?
yeah, yeah.
What does constitute a hate speech in our law in the first place? Because if we take the threats or the death threats, or silly comments or ill wishes, does that also fall into the ambit of hate speech? And when we talk about hate speech, do you think it's a very overly politicized concept in the first place?
No, it's not overly politicized
Okay.
concept, because hate speech is when I would be demeaning any sect, right?
right.
I would be demeaning any woman for being a woman,
Right.
any gender
Right.
for that matter, not
Right.
just woman, man even, all
Right.
right? Or I would be inciting hatred against any group of people
Right.
for gaining something out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
So what would be the gain?
Right.
Just exposing them to ridicule. I mean,
Right.
impinging upon their integrity, their
Psychologically
dignity.
torturing them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And let me tell you, the scars of these things,
True.
I mean,
Stay
are
forever.
so deep that
True.
they take a toll on your soul every second, I would say
Exactly.
day
Yes,
that you
that's
remember it. If you forget it, you're I mean,
So
you're
it's
lucky.
best for the
Skin,
people
yes.
to kind of, you know, make sure that, you know, you stay in your safe places. Do not trust everybody. That's one thing which I would always want to kind of share with you. Do not share your passwords of your
Yes.
cell phones with
Yes.
anybody, no matter how much of a brother, sister, or
trustworthy
or
person
you know, a
is, yes.
trustworthy person is
True.
out there, or your chachu or your uncle. Please don't do that. You know,
Yeah.
stay to yourself
Yes.
and always keep an eye out if somebody's taking your pictures. You know, for people like me and Haja, you know, because we are most of the time in front of camera, so we do recognize. Because I've had people, you know, who walk up to me as fans, alhamdulillah, and you know what happens is, so if, for example, I came out of the gym and I'm wearing shorts, and I'm telling
Yeah.
that gentleman that please do not
Don't
take a complete picture, you know, take
picture,
a picture
yeah,
this
yeah,
short. So I have to
yeah.
check again.
Right.
And there's no harm in making sure that you ask them that, okay, you know, I think that
Yes.
you've taken a picture, you really need to show me your device. So please make sure that you follow these standard operating
Yes.
procedures to make sure that you are safe. But thank you so much, madam,
you
for
so
being
much.
with us. It was lovely to
It
be in
was an
conversation
absolute
with you.
honor.
And for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, this is our concerted effort, our entire team's concerted
Right.
effort to make sure that each and every individual out there is safer, you know, they're well educated, and that they're doing good in life. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, look after
goodbye.
yourselves. 1, 2, 3.
Good morning.
Have a good one.